the land of the rising sun and strict rules. Here there are millions of posters everywhere. There's one like this, one like that, and one like that. You have a whole district dedicated to anime and another dedicated to samurai. And you can go to the local shops as if they were museums. And your used panties will cost 2,400. If your girlfriend calls you by a strange name, you can buy her a band-aid like that. I arrived in Japan, one of the most amazing and authentic countries in the world. When I first came here, I didn't like Japan. But now I come back here with pleasure every time. Last time I was here before the pandemic in 2019. At that time Tokyo was preparing for the Olympic Games, which in the end were postponed for a year. This time, besides Tokyo, I visited many other interesting cities. I collected so much material that it will be enough for several videos. In this video, I will try to show Japan in all its variety. We will walk through different areas of the city and see how the Olympic Games influenced Tokyo. Behind my back is the Tokyo Olympic Stadium. It hosted the Olympics twice, the first time in 1964 and the second time it didn't work out. It was supposed to be in 2020, but because of the COVID, it had to be postponed. On this side there was the stadium built for the 1964 Olympics. When Tokyo won the right to host the 2020 Games, the question arose as to what should be done with the old Olympic Stadium. Then a competition was announced, which was won by Zaha Hadid Studio that creates incredible organic futuristic forms. Everything is very complicated and expensive. They made beautiful drawings, the Japanese were happy, everybody was happy that Japan was going to have this stadium, but then they started to calculate the costs. And the Japanese, as we know, are very stingy people. When they estimated the budget and they saw these complicated constructions, including the magic sliding roof, the budget kept growing. They saw it and they said, you know, the stadium looks like a turtle. You don't want a turtle in the center of Tokyo? Or, God forbid, an elephant? They started some negotiations and they started saying, not that it's expensive, but they started criticizing Zaha Hadid's architecture, that something is not right and it doesn't suit the landscape around it. That's not right. The Japanese architects started to get indignant, but in the end it all came back to cutting the budget. They started to reduce it more and more, and they told the architects who won the competition, you have to give up the sliding roof. That and the third thing, you have to simplify because we don't have money. That's the most interesting thing. They organized a second competition with new data and reduced budget, in which Zaha Hadid took part again. But what did the Japanese do this time? They turned out to be very clever, because they said that, in addition to the architectural project, they would have to find a contractor to build the whole thing. In the second competition, the Japanese architects came with their contractors and companies that said, yes, we can do it. And Zaha Hadid's firm simply couldn't find Japanese contractors. So the project is given to the architect Kengo Kuma. He is a very well-known Japanese architect who had a construction company here in Tokyo. It was not his personal company, but something of an agreement, and so they completed this project. The project is absolutely Japanese. You notice the characteristic features of Kengo Kuma's works. They are references to traditional Japanese architecture. Wood, a lot of plants. Here there are gardens displayed right on these terraces. These wooden poles, something very traditional, it came cheap. And the main thing is that it was done by one of their own, something important for the Japanese. That it was not Zaha Hadid who came here and built a giant tortoise. But you know what happened in 2020. The coronavirus pandemic happened, and the Japanese are very pitiful, because they invested a lot of money and effort. I remember well how they were preparing. They were planning to organize the most futuristic Olympic Games in history. They were teaching robots, they were educating students and school pupils, who had to welcome guests, but none of that could become a reality, because the coronavirus took over the world. We all went into lockdown, everything shut down, and so they had to postpone the games. But even after postponing it for a year, everything went ahead but with restrictions. There were no spectators and no guests. So the Japanese invested a lot of money and effort. They wanted to host a normal Olympics, but they did not succeed. Something tells me that this is a response to ditching Zaha Hadid Studio with their project. They shouldn't have sacked the architects to host the Olympics well. As I said, there used to be an old Olympic stadium on this site, built for the 1964 Olympic Games. Then they tore it down to build a new one, but they kept some mosaics from the old one on display behind the glass here. You can come and enjoy it. They preserved the succession of this place. It was a stadium before, it is a stadium now, and now some details of the old stadium remain. The interesting thing is that the stadium is green not only on the terraces, but around it they made nets to intertwine the plants. Maybe at some point a small Japanese jungle will appear here. There are a lot of plants on the terraces. They are very small now, but they will grow in time. These are the new Japanese taxis which they bought before the Olympic Games, and, according to the plan, all the taxis in Tokyo for the Olympic Games in 2020 had to be replaced with these Toyotas. New Toyotas reminiscent of British cabs. But as we can see, there are still the old Toyota Crowns. This classic Japanese taxi Toyota Crown Super Deluxe with an enlarged space for the passengers, the luxury sofa in the back. By the way, the doors open automatically in all Japanese taxis. This is what a typical Japanese street looks like. There are many of these in Tokyo and other cities. It's average. What's so special about it? Notice that there are no pavements here. They stand out only because of the lack of road markings. Often there are no pavements because there is no space. And of course, there are a lot of cables up in the sky. But this is not to condemn the Japanese, because earthquakes are very frequent here. The cables and all the equipment are up on the poles. It does spoil the cities a lot, but it also allows the cities to recover quite soon after the earthquake. If all that was hidden in underground collectors, it would be more expensive and more durable. The interesting thing is that because recently Tokyo hosted the Olympic Games, although they were not the most successful because of the COVID, yet for the event they hid the cables underground, so that tourists and guests can enjoy the city and not the cables. I also must mention that as we are in Japan, it is incredibly clean. I think it is the cleanest country I have ever seen. Yes, you might find a few sheets of paper lying around, but generally you see the streets clean, unbelievably clean. Simply spectacular. Here is an example of a street that was rebuilt before the Olympics. They just replaced the light bulbs, put all the cables under the ground, planted some trees, put out some benches. In general, in terms of urban design, environmental design, Japan is very bad. Very, very bad. Don't let the Japanese get mad at me. For me it's a mystery, because on the one hand, Japan is famous for its design. Look at the classical Japanese buildings, the Japanese art, how laconic it is and how much style it has. It's impossible not to enjoy it. My heart rejoices, but when I see what they do with the city, I don't understand how that happened. These people who built these traditional Japanese houses, sure, everything is carefully made, it is of good quality and all that, but in terms of design, it's a total mess. It's urgent that the Japanese hire some normal designers to fix the streets. Even this reconstructed street, well, I don't know, it could be better. Look at the design of the lampposts, the design of the fences, it's just not pretty. Behind me, my friends, is a very unpleasant Tokyo. Long ago, last century, when the city was just developing, they decided it would be nice to build a motorway overpass. The city must be modern, suitable for cars, and where you can build motorways. As there were already too many buildings everywhere, especially in the center, the only free space left was the river. So they built a large number of roads and motorways over the river. you can still see them here. You see, here there are several levels, a road junction. All that is in the city center. Here is Ginza, the main shopping street, where you have hotels, restaurants, shops, and here are terrible highways. Generally, they have a strange attitude towards the river. As we know, the river is a wealth, a treasure. We build piers next to the river. People like to walk near the water. There is often expensive real estate near the water, but here in Japan, the river is like a commonplace. The backs of the buildings are facing the river. There is no embankment, and the river is covered with highways from above. Fortunately, the Japanese realized their urban construction mistake and now plan to red it all. So maybe next time I come to Tokyo, I will see a beautiful urban development. Again, we see the river and no waterfront. The facades are very dense, there is no walking area at all. A very characteristic example is when we have a canal or river. Instead of building an embankment, we see a railway on one side, with a closed highway and walls, with some industrial storage spaces. On the other side, more buildings and a car park. Therefore, it is impossible to walk next to the river. You can only cross it by the bridge to discover that there is a river in the city. Here you can clearly see the pileup of poles and old metal parts. The bridge is obviously historical, according to local standards. Then the motorways, buildings, and the back facades and the industrial spaces face the river. The river is not perceived as an important space where you can stroll with pleasure. One of the mysteries is the aerial pedestrian crossing. First of all, I don't understand what is it for, if there is a normal one and you can cross the street there. Everyone is waiting there, but a bigger mystery is that someone has crossed it. I mean, even though you can cross the street on the ground, without crossing the stairs, but someone still climbs this terrible construction even so. The Japanese are ingenious. What an amazing bus. It runs on hydrogen. How interesting in terms of design. Here are the names of the transport passes accepted here. A sign that says everything was disinfected. They filled the whole side of the bus with unclear information labels. Why? Why can't you keep a nice, clean bus? That's how extraordinary the design is. It has a plug and apparently it runs on a hydrogen system. And this is how clothes are dried in small Japanese houses. People hang mattresses, blankets, sheets, everything out of the window. One of the sights of Japan are the toilets. No other country in the world has toilets as spectacular as those in Japan. First, they are clean. Second, they are free. Third, they are very comfortable. Even in ordinary public toilets, there is bound to be a changing table and access for the disabled. This is what it looks like. And look at all those signs. That means it has a special chair for children. So while you're doing your dirty business, what about your child? Well, the child will have their special chair and they will be watching you to learn. There is also one in the disabled toilet. The same in the women's toilet. And there is a special sign confirming that there is a bidet. In the men's bathroom there is a nappy changing table and a child's chair. And now let's see what it looks like. Another important part of Japanese culture, of scrupulousness and pedantism, is the organization of the buildings. There is a lot to learn here. Behind me a building is being reconstructed, and the workers are building a fence around the construction site. A Japanese construction fence is not made out of any random materials just to isolate themselves quickly. A Japanese construction fence is kind of an art, because they perceive the construction sites very carefully. First of all, each fence will be equipped with detectors that will show the noise level, and any pedestrian will be able to see that a construction worker doesn't violate the authorized noise level. In addition, all fences are perfectly white, as if it were an operating theater. All the holes through which dust could come out are covered. It can't happen that anything comes out of there. I have honestly never seen anything like that in any other country in the world. But again, from a design point of view, they could have done better. The design is nothing spectacular, they don't think about that. But from the point of view of scrupulousness, that every millimeter is closed, that very imperfection is taped over, it's really a miracle. And it's not that this is a unique case here. No, no, no. Any construction, the organization of it, is real art. And here the Japanese have outdone themselves. They check every little part so that everything is in order. Well, there was no order there. Now it will have to be fixed. This construction fence is brilliantly white. And not just white, but glossy white. It's really very clean. They wash it very well. You can even see the tree reflection. Everything is made to measure so that the dust from the construction site doesn't get into the street. All these are metal sheets, metal panels. They are glued from below and filled with asphalt from underneath. Where there were big holes, they have taped them, so that not a grain or dust, not a construction bug can escape. At the top there is a net, a safety net, in case a pebble flies out. The corners are transparent, although they have closed the view. You can usually see through these corners, and you can see the special construction of the fence. Here you can see the works, how it all works, but again, it looks very clean. Everything is very nice and clean. I haven't seen the construction fences so neat in any other country. There is a TV screen here. It displays the permits and details on what they are working on. There is the entrance. Not a single hole. Pure perfection. And here is a construction fence, and in one corner they made an exhibition. And here the noise level is measured, so that the citizens can see that nothing is infringed. If there is a gate, there is also a special man to warn pedestrians about the danger. And of course, all of this is sustainable. The 17 principles of sustainability are all listed. They are proud of that. They even put it on their fence. Oh, the gate's open. Out comes the car, and a person in charge comes out with a flag to warn everybody. Now they're going to wash the car. They have a whistle and a helmet, just in case. And the next exit there are also two people. It must be so that they don't get bored. Look, the construction equipment is perfectly clean too. It's not just a lamppost. It's a lamppost wrapped in a soft rubber, so that if someone crashes into this post, it doesn't get hurt. They put two cones with spotlights that light up at night to make this pole stand out. In Japan, it is impossible to imagine a situation when a car with dirty tires drives off, leaving a track behind it. Supposedly in Russia there shouldn't be such a situation either, because according to the rules, the tires must be washed and the equipment will have to be repaired. But unfortunately, these rules are often disregarded, and the dirt from the construction site spreads all over the city. This is what a paid bike park looks like. Here near the metro, you can leave your bike. Lately in Japan they started to disregard parking rules. It used to be almost impossible to find a bike that was not parked properly. Nowadays, they started to leave bicycles lying on their sides. Surely it's not right. What's that? I don't think you can leave a bicycle like that here. I'm not at all sure you can. Look how neat it is. How the car is parked just like the marking is, one and the other. All these vending machines, a bicycle, everything is nice. Nice and clean. There is a coffee shop and people waiting on a bench outside. But guys, I have a question. Where are the cycle lanes? There's definitely a problem with them here. Even though people ride bicycles, there are no cycle lanes. It is outrageous. I'd say if it's Japan, there should be cycle lanes, but there are not. I know it's not Amsterdam, but they could make their own Japanese cycle lanes, so that they make me happy. Well, it's not that I'm sad, but I'm sure there's need for cycle lanes. This looks like a secret bus stop, and apparently, it is a tourist bus stop. You have to jump out of a bush to get on the bus. Where is the bus? Is this the bus stop? So you need to come out here and the bus will stop here. You can see the road marking here. And here, right next to the pavement, a bicycle passes by. And here, folks, is an outrageous situation. They made a bicycle lane in the middle of the pavement. They made a sign that says bicycle lane and pedestrians have to scatter so they don't get run over. Of course it's outrageous. You can't do it like that. Look, this person is going way too fast on the pavement. And this is Japan, and this is Japan. Of course, they drive with caution, they let everybody pass. But still, it's wrong. Here are some amazing three-wheeled carts. Oh wow, look at this. The Japanese painted the lane gray. I thought that was only possible in Belarus, where they paint the asphalt gray. But no, apparently a Japanese delegation visited Belarus. They saw the avant-garde experience of painting asphalt and decided to do it in Tokyo. It's not clear why they did it. It may be that they think it looks neater. Well, at least someone did well with the sales of the gray paint. Guys, it turns out that I criticized in vain, and they don't paint the asphalt to make it look beautiful. Eugene, who has been living here for 13 years now, cleared up my doubts. He knows the special features here better than I do. This is for the asphalt not to heat up, as light asphalt does not absorb as much heat from the sun as black asphalt does. So they protect the asphalt, firstly, so it doesn't get hot, and secondly, so that there is not so much heat around it. As there are good, new roads in Japan and they change them often. They're really black and get hot quickly. Now the season for changing the asphalt is starting. At the end of March the fiscal year ends. There are funds left over in the cities and provinces, and they have to spend them. Otherwise, next year their budget will be cut. They will say, well, they could do it with less funds. Well, at least now I'm not so sad, because here too they lay the asphalt when it rains. If you thought Japan was a country of sushi, samurai and sake, forget it. It is the country of billboards and signs. The Japanese are obsessed with rules and signs. They are everywhere. A very important problem in Japan from a design point of view is information overload. For some reason, the Japanese feel that the more information, the better. That's why we see a huge amount of signs here. Warnings, navigation and more. Someone would say, the more the better, but in reality it causes an enormous amount of noise and it becomes difficult to find something important and necessary in this chaos. I don't know. Maybe if you live here for a long time you get used to it, and you get the so-called ads blindness when you stop noticing the advertisements. And here you must also have a navigation blindness when you stop seeing extra, unnecessary signs. But at first you start to go crazy in Japan because of this endless chaos of navigation. I have never seen anything like this anywhere. They tell you the height above sea level. They put the names of the streets 10 times. Say what you can do and what you can't do. They have an infinite number of rules. It's just a nightmare. There are so many of them that it's hard to see. There are so many posters here, so much visual rubbish that it makes it difficult to see, because the Japanese don't care much about design. You get the impression that they create them in a local accountant's office. And look, even in such a small corner there are many diagrams. One like this, another like that, and the third like that. They're all different and they're all really fancy. There is a lot of information. They all have a different font, different size. They don't care at all about how it looks. Here's something new. Apparently, it's about the 111th anniversary of the local underground. The lift shaft is supposed to be beautiful, all made of glass. But the Japanese decided it's silly not to make use of so much free space, when you can display a lot of ads and publicity here. So here we have an ad for a Google smartphone. Here something incomprehensible in Japanese. On this side they stuck an ad for their trains and another one has an ad for something else. There's too much information. You can find out everything here, the latest news, what's going on in the world, where the attack on Belarus was prepared from. Very important information that you can't leave anything here, not even a glass. You have all the social networks like Twitter and stuff from this underground station here. Here are some new maps and diagrams. As always, they're all different. Sometimes it looks like there was a metro design competition, one for students, not professional, and the students' works were exhibited here, as if that was an exhibition. I can't justify so many metro maps in one place in any other way. I just don't understand it. Here is a big advertisement, here smaller, here even smaller, and there's a tiny one. And down there we have a very big one. Next to it, a small one. Here they're looking for someone, perhaps a dangerous psycho. Here you can hug a unicorn of some sort. Here are the safety rules. Where is the fire extinguisher? How to call someone? Here is a cute turtle. Here is a dog on a bike with a helmet on, and everything is full of hearts. Everyone is cheerful, it must be something good and kind. There's an evacuation map, see? Blind people can use it too. No rush. It's better to wait for the next train than get your nose stuck in between train doors. Here, for example, you can see that there is a stop of the second car. For those who didn't understand, they repeat here that this is the second car. Second car. Ah, cars have doors. This is the second door of the second car. It has a number on it. And this is the third door of the second car. A rare phenomenon of the Tokyo Metro. A new station. Well, it's quite old, but they built a new platform. Ginza Line, Shibuya, it looks like the insides of a huge fish. These, by the way, are the new trains. They look like old ones too, but they didn't have any of these before. Everything is very clean and neat. Of course, there's a toilet here, very important. Practically in every station there is a toilet. As for the marking, look, it says here, second carriage, exit number 4. Doors 8B and 8A. Here's also the second carriage, exit 4. It's strange that it doesn't say here is door B and there, door A. How do I find it otherwise? In some stations, they also mark the left and right doors. In case you haven't found your way around at all. This is what the stairs in the metro look like. It says platform number 1, platform 1, platform 1, platform 1. Exits D1, D2. You can travel to the airport from here. Keep to your left. Keep left, keep left, keep left. Platform 2 is somewhere else, in case you were wondering. At the bottom of the stairs, they say get to platform 2, you have to go back. There are arrows here that says forward, forward, forward. And this one, back. Surprisingly, the station manager hasn't decided to use the space to put more information here. How did they overlook this? Maybe the ads don't stick onto here? These are the famous Japanese trains. One is wider and cleaner and the other one has already turned a bit yellow. But they are fast, comfortable. But I would say they are the best way to travel in Japan. It's probably the only right way to travel in Japan, to go on spectacular trains. Look how many signs they have, everything has a yellow background. How can you not get lost in this madness? The directions to the exit are displayed everywhere. They are all around the station. At every station there is also this sign. This sign shows all the stations on this line. Every carriage on the train. With numbers, each one has its own number. And it shows which exit is near which car. For example, you need to go to station 11. You can see that there will be a staircase and a toilet if you get off in car 4. Getting off car 4 you will see a lift, and if you exit from a car 8, there will be a lift, staircase, a toilet, and transfer to another line. Here you can plan which car to get on, so you can get off at the right time at the right station.
чтобы выйти в нужном месте на нужной вам станции.
Everyone thinks that in Japan there are only robots, but no. There are no robots here. Everything is done by hand. Here there is a person cleaning the railings. It is rare that they are alone. Normally in Japan there are 3 people to clean better. A very important piece of information. In case anyone was worried, here they wrote that we are 3 meters above sea level. Japanese people like to write a lot of things that will not occur to Europeans. What is the point of writing all of this? It says it's 3.1 meters above sea level. I don't want to say anything, but my iPhone says that it's 54 meters above sea level. Oops, it's 51. 51 meters. 50, 48, we are going deep down. This shows 8.7 meters. Notice, not just 8, not 9. It's accurate to 10 centimeters. I really don't know who needs all this information. I've been looking for an answer to this question for a long time. The thing is that in Japan there can be tsunami, there can be a flood, and these signs let you know how high you are. When you get on an underground station, you will realize that this station is not that high, and you should seek shelter elsewhere in case there is a tsunami warning or a threat of flooding, so that you don't accidentally hide in the station if it will be flooded a few moments later. So I wouldn't hide in a station that's 8 meters above sea level. If it was 30, 40, that's pretty safe. They're on a hill, so you'd be able to find shelter there. Just in case, that's my guess. I'm not 100% sure that's true. If I was doing some sort of pub quiz, that'd be my best guess. Maybe the Japanese just have nothing to do, and that's why they write all these numbers. Maybe they have a special minister for confirming the above sea level. The one who puts these signs on all the underground stations. Obviously you need staff to do it, and hey, it might be a way they create jobs and help the economy grow in some way. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is what the Japanese post advertisement looks like. I said advertisement. Well, I see so many ads that I couldn't say office anymore. This is what a post office looks like. They sell stamps here, you can send mail. There are a lot of things. The only thing is that they don't sell food, unlike the Russian post office. And here at the post office exit there's a special hand washing station. The interesting thing is that in the post office there's a model of the breast. Look, there is a tit here. There is a real tit here. First I thought you can touch it for good luck. You can hold it like this for good luck, but no, it's a model of breast cancer. You can touch it to understand what breast cancer feels like to the touch. They touch your own breasts, and if you have something similar, you go and see the doctor. It's an interesting choice of a thing to have at the post office. It's something spectacular. I've never seen anything like it. I went into the post office, and here you can clearly see how the Japanese know how to mess everything up with their advertisements. It's a Japanese ATM where you can receive a lot of different services, and it can talk to you. But they thought that this ATM isn't enough, because the Japanese think that if there is a wall, there must be a sign on top of it. What else is the wall for? So all surfaces are covered with ads. What's more, a nice glass door also needs a lot of signs and symbols. An umbrella. Of course people won't know what to do with it. There are 2 signs about it, just in case someone didn't understand from the first time. Here they talk about masks, here they promote panda bears. A food promotion ad. The Russian Post is starting to look like a nice place because here there are advertising magazines, brochures, advertisements telling how to behave, how to treat the bear, how to treat children, a kangaroo. Here are samples of some food. This is a sample of the fish you can buy. Here is a male dog. Here are all the cars they accept. Here is another dog. It reminds me of the 1990s when Russian cities were full of advertisements. You would walk down Tverskaya Street or Nevsky Avenue and everything was filled with an infinite amount of advertisement. That's more or less what Japan's post office looks like. On the one hand, it never ceases to amaze me that the Japanese are such perfectionists, how they achieve perfection when it comes to cooking, plant breeding, technical equipment. We all know the Japanese are great. At the same time, they fail when it comes to the urban environment and design. They don't seem to understand that it's not the right thing to do. I'm surprised. This is probably a new wall. They must have just finished the repairs and didn't have time to mess it all up again. This is definitely not right. There are new columns and they are spotless. Interesting. What is the station manager doing? There are so many empty walls. They've just finished repairs. They must have not noticed it yet, but I'm sure in a few months they will fill everything with ads. There are endless prohibitions even in playgrounds. Seems they can build good slides and swings. You have to sleep at night. No fireworks. Nor you can throw a baseball at your friend's head. Nor is a bicycle allowed in the park. The dog must be on a leash. The garden is pretty ordinary. Nothing to really be proud of. Nothing to be really proud of, except for the toilet. Note that virtually every playground in Japan has toilets. It would seem like a simple thing, but for Russia it's very rare. At my Urban Projects Foundation, we once surveyed the locals in a typical residential area about what they need in their area. We thought they were going to talk about banks, cafes, Wi-Fi. But the main thing was that young parents lacked public toilets. Because if they go out with their child and they want to go to the toilet, they have to find a bush. If in the city center they can go into a cafe or a shopping center, in a playground in a residential area it's a problem if there's no toilet. Especially if they need to change nappies or something, or wash their hands. The Japanese know this very well, so they have toilets everywhere. Japan is very densely populated, especially in cities as big as Tokyo. The Japanese capital is home to about 14 million people. For every square kilometer there are 6,500 people, so in big cities there are queues everywhere to get into the underground, train stations and restaurants. In the morning in Tokyo you can see crowds of Japanese rushing to get to work, and in the evening, home. Of course, the logistics are neat and tidy to the max. Behind my back is one of Tokyo's attractions, the Shibuya station crossing. You must have seen a video made in fast motion, in which thousands of people are passing through it. When there are not so many people here, now it's not so many, but in the morning or afternoon, a total of 3,000 people can cross the street simultaneously during a traffic light phase. It's an amazing thing. If you want to see lots of people, come here. The atmosphere is reminiscent of New York Times Square. That's why it's even more pleasant to walk the streets of Tokyo at the weekend. Today, Saturday, the Japanese closed the main shopping street in the Ginza district. Now there are people walking around, they put their tables and chairs out. By the way, this is very common in many cities, especially in Latin America. When they close the streets in Colombia, usually more than one, and people ride their bikes, walk around, see their city in a different way. In Russia they could also do it, close Tverskaya or Nevsky every weekend, but they're afraid. They fear the wrath of motorists, or that Sergei Siban or Alexander Baglov will have to go somewhere and see that the street is closed. What good is that? The Japanese are not afraid, so they have a great city, pleasant to walk around in, especially at the weekend. By the way, it's very nice, look. Here go some City Hall employees. They don't look like policemen. They carry signs that it's forbidden to ride a bike. That's great. They walk around and show it to everybody. Where else would you see that? Normally they just put up a sign and everybody would break this rule. But here are these two men walking around and it's not one of them. They could have one, but no, look, there are two. That's also very characteristic of Japan. Not only do they copy each sign several times covering the whole wall, they also double the people. Where one person could do it all, they can put about three. It is interesting that in recent years, the Japanese are looking to increase the country's territory. And they're not doing it by means of colonial wars or border changes, but with artificial waste islands. This helps to solve the waste problem and attract tourists. I'm on the island of Odaiba, Tokyo. Behind me is the Statue of Liberty. What is it doing here? It's probably a replica, because in the world in general there are 3 statues of liberty. The biggest one is in New York. It was a gift from the French at the end of the 19th century. Everybody knows it. It is one of the symbols of the USA. Another small statue is in Paris, in the river Seine, on an island. It is much less known, because it is far from the tourist trails. You have to visit it intentionally, and so only a few do. By the way, if you visit Paris, definitely go to see it. Then, the French in 1998, in the framework of promoting France and Japan to promote their wine and cheese, brought their little Statue of Liberty. They put it here, in Odaiba, and the promotion went incredibly well. Because the Japanese really liked the statue. They didn't want to give it back. However, the French took it back and said they would not give it back. But the Japanese made a deal with them, and a couple of years later, in 2000, they created another Statue of Liberty, and they brought it from France to Japan. It was put up with funds from local companies. It's not a gift, but it was made in France. So in the world, there are 3 original Statues of Liberty: in New York, Paris, and here in Tokyo, on the island of Odaiba. This statue, by the way, it's 4 times smaller than the one in New York. It is 11.5 meters high. And the interesting thing about Odaiba Island is that it's a new district, an artificial island, built on a basis of construction waste. It was the ashes of the factories that burn rubbish. As Japan is a small country, they don't have landfills, as in Russia, and they have been burning rubbish for a long time. The ashes that are left over from this, as well as what is not burned, are crushed into bricks and then used to build these landfill islands, among other things. In this way, they are gradually making their country bigger. So we are practically on a rubbish island looking at a real Statue of Liberty. Behind the Statue of Liberty is a Rainbow Bridge, a fancy hanging huge bridge. Each region has its own waste disposal rules, but in each one they are quite harsh. For example, for each type of rubbish there are days when it can be thrown away. There are 4 main categories: combustible, non-combustible, bulky, and recyclable. Recyclable, in turn, is divided into many more categories: paper, glass, plastic, and so on. Virtually every item has an instruction as to which parts of it should be kept where. The history of waste is very complicated here. You can't just grab waste of who knows what can and throw it in the bin, nor into the bin in the yard, as it's case in some countries. Here you have to separate the rubbish, and it's not the type of splitting like in Europe, where you say, here you throw the metal, here you throw the glass, and the rest will be sorted out somehow later. No. In Japan, for example, if it's a plastic bottle, you have to wash it and remove the cap, because the cap of the bottle and the bottle itself are made of a different material. There are different kinds of waste, and you have to remove the label. Well, recycling is surprising here, and they say that some people in Japan, when they think whether to go to a shop and cook something, or to go to a restaurant, they choose the latter, because this way they don't have to deal with recycling. Look, here, for example, there are plastic bottles. They are all washed. There is not one dirty bottle, they are washed without fail. None of them are full. The bottles are on one side and the lids are on the other. Here are other bottles. I don't know what the difference is, but the Japanese must know it. One type of bottles, second type of bottles. Oh no! One person didn't remove the label. You can tell he tried, but he didn't succeed and left a bottle with the label attached. Oh no. So here are the aluminum cans. A whole container of aluminum cans. Here are batteries and aerosol cans. And here, bags of mixed waste. Probably for mixed waste, when it's thrown away like this, you have to buy extra rubbish bags. In addition to the Statue of Liberty, Odaiba Island has a huge Ferris wheel, offices of international companies, and a spectacular interactive museum. I don't normally film much in museums, sometimes visiting them for my own pleasure, but here is something simply fantastic. This place is called TeamLab. It is located in the south of Tokyo, on the same artificial island. It is an interactive museum in which numerous installations are represented. Some with water, others are dry. At the same time, you can't call it a museum. It's an interactive center. You have to take off your shoes and also your socks, because you start walking on water in the middle of balloons and mazes. And everything is accompanied by lights, smells, wind, different surfaces on which you walk. Simply something amazing. I never imagined it like this. I highly recommend it, especially if you go with children. It will be amazing. And the main thing is that you will take a lot of cool pictures for Instagram. If people used to go to museums to see the paintings or something like that, now they visit very interesting spaces to take cool pictures. When here, in front of the entrance, there is a column, in front of which everybody takes pictures. For foreigners, the whole of Japan is like a big museum. You don't need to book a tour to be impressed. All you have to do is stroll around the local shops, a typical Japanese building. Narrow streets, narrow houses, no pavements, but everything is very comfortable. The pleasure of walking in neighborhoods like this one is that you walk along and you see, like behind me, a fence full of graffiti, a simple grey house, a car park, but walking around here as if you were looking for mushrooms in a forest. You find little shops, benches, very nice and pretty places. Look here, boom! And behind me is this worn out house. There is a clothes shop. Again, there is a stylish shop, or maybe an office. And here again, there is a wonderful shop where they sell eco-friendly clothes. They also have a cafe. You can have a drink to look around. You go in and you say, wow, what a beauty. And nearby there is a very nice cafe. All very stylish, very nice. And here there is a cheese shop. Nearby there is a spectacular dog. What a cute little dog. An incredible dog. The only thing, they tied it to a cow. Inside here they sell cheese and wine. In front is a shop with utensils. So much style, beauty, and what a contrast. You can see that there are Japanese who understand how to get it right with minimalism and style, but for some reason they don't go to work in the underground and post office. Suddenly a shop is selling cards with Pokemon on them. A card with Pikachu is priced at 88,000 yen. It's there in an envelope. There's another one for 44,000. There's another one for 22,000. Or there are different cards, and just so you know, there's a big selection for each Pokemon. There are simple ones priced at 180 yen, and others that cost tens of thousands of yen. Here is the real perversion. There's nothing explicit, but here it is, for those who have opted for a doll instead of a real woman. Here you can put on dresses, costumes. It is the case when adult men play with dolls. So there is a perversity here, and these dolls are actually sold. One such doll costs 25,000 yen. All of them are sold out. And look at the Transformers. There are Transformers for every taste. None of them are painted. You put them together and then paint them yourself. All that is to build models. A lot of different tweezers, tools, various brushes. A lot of paints in different shades. There is everything to assemble and then paint a model. They look like cotton swabs, but each one has a different diameter. I think all of this could have been invented only in Japan. There are all kinds of magnifying glasses, mouthpieces for some machines so you can file and polish. There are 5 whole floors with figurines, models, and everything that could be necessary for collectors. And there are dozens of these shops. It is not the only shop, it is one of many. As it says used here, it's probably used clothes. They are sold in these bags. You can buy someone's clothes for 2,640. This one for 2,420. You can buy just the underwear or all the clothes in these bags. A used office suit. It costs 7,200. Well, that's all used underwear, and not only that, there are used costumes. Used costumes, yes. You can buy a set of clothes or just the underwear. Some of it is anonymous and some of it is from certain girls. The ones from specific girls costs more, 1,000, while the anonymous ones cost 1,000. And with 1,000 yen to buy, as we say, you're being taken for a ride. There is an anonymous one for 1,400, but if you want her specific panties, it will cost you 2,400. They have a photo of the person this clothes belongs to. The interesting thing is that they don't let women into the men's department. There's a special sign. In addition to all these fan shops with dolls, cartoons, equipment, video game characters, there are sex shops, of course. The famous multi-story sex shops, and the funny thing is that there is something for every taste and budget and fantasy. The funny thing is they don't let women into the men's departments. I mean, a man can come to women's department with his girlfriend to look at vibrators and everything else. But for a men's department, when there's really nothing compromising, there are dolls and things like that, women are not allowed in. Men are probably shy about shopping in the presence of women, and so that the business isn't destroyed, they don't allow women in. Also, I finally found the vending machine where they sell used panties. There are many legends about it. When someone tells you about Japan, they say Japanese people are so wicked that they can buy used panties in the vending machines. This is the famous machine there are legends about, where they sell used panties for 500 yen, 2 pieces. It's mainly a legend for tourists because they are nowhere to be found. There are not many of these machines. But as many foreigners come here, many tourists come and ask, where can I buy used pants here? I get the feeling that the Japanese decided to make money out of it, considering it's the only stand where everything is translated into English. The others, it seems, are for internal use, and the only stand where it says used, panties, buy in English is the dirty underwear stand. So it looks like they were made for tourists who wanted to see everything. Here is something interesting. You can buy a glass with ice. Then a drink, pour it into this glass and you have an iced tea, for example. That's amazing. And here there are drinks. I mean, you can buy a juice, and if it doesn't seem cold enough, there are glasses with ice. Small, big, medium. A shop with bags of jelly, jelly with grapes. Very tasty, by the way. It's not sweet, it's quite cold. The grapes are nice. But it's very expensive for a can like this, 1,000 yen. The Japanese invented so many things. For example, special band-aids to cover girls' mouths. So if your girlfriend calls you by another male name in the night, you can probably buy her such a band-aid. Most likely it's to stop her snoring. But the funny thing is that if a girl gets her mouth covered, men get their noses covered. And if none of that helps, they can plug their ears with these fashionable earplugs. There is a toothbrush shop. They say everything is handmade. If Korean cuisine is mostly meat, Japanese cuisine is mostly fish. There is a huge amount of fish. If you have sushi in Europe, you have tuna, salmon, squid, crab, shrimp, and various types of white fish. There are dozens of species of white fish here, and a good sushi master will tell you how one fish differs from another. There are so many species. I have not heard many of these names before I came to Japan. And to see Japanese fish, you have to go to the market. See how it's all done. The fish market is divided into a professional one, where restaurants buy the fish and tourists are not allowed to enter. When you can go to see the tuna auction early in the morning. Now you can do that too, but it will be behind glass from above. So you can no longer immerse yourself in the process, but instead of the old market, there are a lot of stalls, cafes, restaurants, where you can see this fish, first of all, and secondly, eat it right there, right now. This is how it looks like. There are people promoting it everywhere. There are stalls where you can see huge oysters. Here they show a crab. By the way, the crab is probably Russian, because, at least as far as I know, in Japan the catching season has not started yet. But maybe they already have the local ones here, who knows? They're cooking it, frying it, everything is relatively simple and inexpensive. There is a lot of dried fish, some takeaway kits. At the same time, as the place is becoming more and more touristy, unusual places for Japan appear here, for example, selling juice. And the juice is served inside the orange itself. They use the orange instead of a glass. By the way, a very good place can be distinguished from a good one. Maybe there are no bad places here, but you can distinguish between good and very good by the queue next to it. If you see a queue somewhere, then this place has a history. Maybe there was a... Look, here for example, there are bowls. And a lot of young Japanese people waiting. So maybe this place was on the Instagram of a Japanese celebrity, or a guide. Maybe there are a lot of legends about this place, so the queue says that the place isn't simple as others. People are crowded, there is a huge queue here, and the line next to it is organized with ribbons. There is a chef preparing the tuna. Different species of tuna. Wow, where does this queue lead to? This leads to... let's see. It leads to octopus. It's not clear what they do with the octopuses here. They're just fried octopuses. Oh, I get it. They make a kind of shrimp or octopus paper. It's kind of amazing. Let's see when it's done. It's pressed octopus. Are people queuing for this? Well, yes, it's pressed shrimp and octopus mixed with egg or flour. They put it under a press, then they fry it until it looks like a giant potato. It turns out like a big chip. And people are queuing for it. It doesn't seem appetizing though. I don't know. Seems there's too much oil. Here there are other queues for omelets. Here there are omelets and there must be the longest queue in this market for them. It goes around and starts from there, because they're cooking omelets here. One costs 100 yen, less than $1. Here you can see how many kinds of this omelet there are here. They have it with crab sticks, with some sort of an onion. There are absolutely the same omelets elsewhere, but nobody queues for them. Frankly, I don't know what the difference between omelets is. In my opinion, an omelet is not a product we're queuing for. But we come to the market in particular to be surprised by local traditions that might seem strange to us. There is everything in these boxes: crabs, shrimps, different shells. It all looks very appetizing and you can buy most of it to eat right here. By the way, they serve caviar in a very interesting way. They sell it just as they take it out. It isn't salty. By the way, the ramen system is very interesting. Ramen is a different kind of restaurant in Japan. And usually you order while you're queuing, and when you come in, it's already being prepared. So it's quicker. The ramens are not big, and they need the places to be vacated soon. But normally you eat, and after eating you pay. And in Tokyo, I found a ramen place where you pay first. You do via in a machine. There are people inside. You first need to approach this machine. You choose what you want. That is, first you put in the money, only cash. Then you choose the ramen you want, the supplements, a glass of beer for example, rice, egg, whatever you need. Then you get a receipt. The restaurant keeps it and starts preparing your meal. That's how this system is, so that people eat and leave sooner. If you want to see more, you can go to the Aoyama district. The shops there are surprising not only with their content, but also with their form. I'm now in the Aoyama district, which is a district with fashion shops. There are Japanese and international brands, but of course, I'm not interested in clothes. I'm not this kind of person. I'm interested in its architecture, because different boutiques compete for whose shop will be more impressive, more interesting, and each shop is like a big sculpture. I would like to see everything. For example, this shop Miu Miu looks like a huge box. Look at this architecture, it is a grey box, made of metal. The flap is open and the shop peeks out of it. This is Prada. They also have an interesting shop here. It is a glass building that looks like a precious stone with diagonal windows, reminiscent of a cushioned sofa. Of course, it is many stories high, so fashion lovers, locals or visitors can buy a lot here. Here they build something new. I don't know what brand will be here, but again, here you can see that everyone invests a lot in their shops. One of the shops built a basketball court in their backyard. I don't think anyone is going to play basketball here. First, there is an expensive and very fashionable shop here. Second, it's on a slope. It must be for the water to come down from there. The shop there is intertwined with a plant. Now, most of the leaves have fallen off, but in another season, it will be beautiful. Look at this cute little bus. It's not just a bus, it's full of fish, crabs, and it makes you want to get on this bus in spite of the noise of this diesel engine, which I disapprove of. But in Japan, you can often see an extraordinary livery of public transport. Good for them. If you decided to bring from Japan a rare of gadget or manga comics, you should go to the Akiba district. It's a real paradise for geeks and anime fans. I arrived in the Akiba or Akibara district. Its name comes from the name of the deity Akiba, who rules over fire. In 1869, the district was almost completely destroyed by fire. To protect the new houses from fire, the Japanese installed a shrine to the god Akiba. In the 20th century, the district was nicknamed the City of Electronics because the black market for electrical appliances flourished here. But as time went on, official shopping centers and small shops selling computers and other household equipment opened here. Since then, people have been going here to the Akibara district in search of household equipment. It is like the Gorbushka market in Moscow, although the scale is not the same. Here it is much more advanced. But it's not just about the electronic devices, because with the advance of video games, the district became a home of the otaku subculture. That's what they call fans of anime, manga, video games, and so on. Today, Akibara is home to hundreds of shops selling anime, manga, souvenirs, promotional items, and games. But if you think there are crowds of teenagers here, it's not so. Because anime is considered an adult animation genre. So this is where the serious adult fans hang out. There are dozens of maid-themed cafes in Akibara, and their main visitors are also men. However, the name Maid Cafe comes from the word maid. It is the waitresses who most often work as maids. Figurines like this are once sold everywhere here. They cost a pretty penny, and there are vending machines where you can find some of them too. I, to my great shame, don't understand any of it. But according to the number of shops and what crowds there are here, now it's morning of a working day, but in the afternoon people come and buy all this stuff. So it's an amazing culture, which happened far away from me, but it must be a paradise for those who are interested in it. And for those who understand it. Another very convenient feature of Japan is these storage spaces. They are everywhere, in underground stations, shopping malls, just in the street. So if you came here and you're walking around the city, you bought something and you want to leave it somewhere for a while, you'll rent one of these cells for $1 or $2. You drop off your bags and walk lightly. This is absolutely amazing. Of course you can find them in many countries, but I've never seen as many as in Japan. Here they're really everywhere. A cell costs 300 yen or $2. You can rent it for $2. Here they built a big complex with cells for rent. A big one costs 700 yen, a medium one 500 yen, a small one 400 yen. And there are such lockers near every underground station. Akibara is a surprising district because there are so many cafes, restaurants, entertainment centers, everything you can imagine. It is interesting because of its visual impact. It is interesting because of its flashy advertising, i.e., there is no architecture here. Instead of architecture, there are surfaces full of ads. In this case, the more advertising, the better the advertising. It's like in New York's Times Square, where you can see the architecture behind the advertising facades. And the advertising spaces themselves have become part of the architecture, they have become facades and shop windows. And it no longer matters what the building itself looks like. It is the same here no matter what concrete boxes they build, because this huge amount of advertising creates a unique atmosphere. Of course, everything must be done in a measured way. If the whole city is like this, we will go crazy. And we want something calmer, that the gaze rests somewhere. Like a place where you come and take pictures. Here you look at all this colorfulness, and it's quite interesting. It's also interesting that everything here is written in hieroglyphics. We Europeans don't understand what it says there. So for us, it is an ornament or a border. But the locals can actually read it all. It would be interesting to know how Scandinavians, Europeans feel here. Icelanders, for example, who come and see advertisements with these girls. This exploitation of sexuality, big breasts, all half naked. All this eroticism, objectification of the female body. Attracting visitors to cafes and restaurants with images of these girls. I can imagine what a shock it is for them. Because in Iceland it is forbidden by law. Because there it is forbidden to use the body as an advertising tool. You cannot use it to attract customers, it is forbidden by law. The European morality in terms of equal rights differs a lot from the Japanese. Because in Japan, there is no problem with using the body anywhere. It doesn't surprise anyone, and people come here precisely because of that. I would like to know how fast Japan will evolve under pressure from Europe. Here's another interesting precedent. In Russia, they often show the West as something perverse, which is like Sodom and Gomorrah, with gay marches all the time. Horror and nightmare for Russia, which is supposedly a very conservative country. Whereas in many ways, the West is much more conservative. For example, in terms of treatment of women and the female body. Because in Russia, as in Japan, people see nothing wrong in the objectification of women, in the use of the female body, exploitation of sexuality. It is considered normal in advertising or wherever. And in that perverse West, this is not the case. So let's be civilized, my friends. We have to evolve and leave the Middle Ages behind us. In this respect, I like European values better. Friends, if you like this video about Tokyo, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press that bell button and send the link to your friends on WhatsApp or share it on Reddit.